Have you ever received a phone call from a customer who does not know what laptop or computer to get? From the RAM, from the graphics to the processor, they're just not sure on which one to select. Now, in this day and age where when every business or every job requires the help of a computer, and where almost every household has it, there are still customers who lack the information about computers. And our job as a customer service representative or a sales representative is to help them know about what's in a computer. My name is Cecile, and in this video, we're going to be talking about processor basics. Now, by the end of this video, you will be able to define the processor, differentiate RAM and hard drive, determine the types of the processors, and recommend the right processor for which type of customers. Now, what's in it for us? It's important to know this because if we were able to explain this right to a non-tech savvy customers, or to every customers basically, this will result to a good customer survey. And if we were able to recommend the right processor, right computer for them, it will avoid the return. So let's start. What's in your computer? So when asked what's in your computer, you might automatically think of saying Windows 10 or Windows 7, an older version, or an answer to that question could also be an i3, i5, i7, i9, or even AMD Ryzen. So those are examples of processors. Now, there are a lot of components that's in a computer, but again, in this video, we're going to learn more about the processor. And okay, so the processor basics. What's a processor, by the way? Now, a processor is a chip responsible for calculations. Is this also the brain of the computer? Now, since it is the brain of a computer, it makes the logical decisions, which basically means this, the tasks, basically all the tasks the computer does. So, for example, from typing, from opening a window or a browser, to the most complex tasks like photo editing or completing a 3D animation, the processor is responsible for that. Now, how it works is basically it receives the input data, it processes the input data, and of course provide the output. Now, in other words, or to explain it simply, the processor will accept instructions and execute them. Now, the processor is also the one that has the RAM or the hard drive. So the two, let's talk about the RAM first. The RAM is the random access memory. It is a short-term memory. Although it's a memory, it does not mean it store files. This is a short-term memory whenever a computer performs a calculation, or this is a responsible for the calculation. So since it is a short-term memory, that means the memory is cleared when the computer is shut off. For the hard drive, on the other hand, this is the long-term storage. So this one is responsible for keeping the computer's data even when the computer is turned off. So the files that you save, the Microsoft Word or the Excel, or even the music, the pictures you have in the computer, that's where it's stored. The hard drive is responsible for the storage of those. And okay, for the processor upgrading components. Now, there are different amounts of RAM and hard drive. So if the customer only has certain amount of RAM now, it is important to know that they can also upgrade it. or when choosing a computer, it's best to know to just go directly upgrade it to what you currently needs now. And why is that? What benefit will a customer realize from upgrading the processor? So, of course, here are the benefits: giving the customer more power to do more things, future proofing the computer, getting better use of a software, and better overall experience for the life of a computer. So when we say giving the customer more power to do more things, that means that when the processor is good, or it's is the best processor the computer has, then it makes the computer more powerful, meaning it can also perform more powerful tasks like computer or photo editing, for example. Future proofing the computer. So, for example, my customer previously, while we're looking for the right laptop for her, she mentioned that her usage now is just for email, for words, just surfing the web. So you can really tell that it's just a basic task she performs, and you might automatically recommend an i3. We might automatically say that i3 is good enough for her. But she mentioned that upon probing as we go along with the order placement, I learned that she has to install Adobe in the future. She's not able to specify what specific product of Adobe, but as we all know, it's not a basic task to perform for a computer. So then we decided to just get her the i7. And yeah, she ended up purchasing or getting the i7. And she agreed that although she does not really need it now, she's going to need it in the future. And it's also to make sure that um, what in the years to come, she will still be able to use the computer. And there are also other online, for gamers, for online games, there are online games who requires i5 to be able to run the game smoothly. So that's one of the benefits for getting an upgraded processor. Now, what questions will you ask to initiate a conversation about upgrading it? Okay, so you can ask the customer, do you foresee using more intensive programs in the future? How long are you planning on keeping your computer? Do you run several intense programs at the same time? So those are the questions that you can ask to the customer. So if customers are just like me, when we purchase a or something or a product, um, we see ourselves using it in the next 5 years. So since technology is very dynamic, what's best now may not be best in the years to come. So it's important to make sure that uh, whatever we have now will still work in the next few years. So the types of processors, we have Intel and AMD. So you might have already received phone calls from customers asking the difference between the Intel and AMD. Now, usually these are the customers who just have basic knowledge or information or average information about technologies, because the most of the tech savvy customers, they already know the difference between Intel and AMD. Now, when you're explaining this, you don't necessarily have to be very technical, because it might confuse the customers. So you can just put it in a way, in a simpler way, like the Intel is the Coke of the processors, while the AMD is the Pepsi. Now, that does not automatically mean that Intel is the best processor, because what works for other people might not automatically work for you. So it still depends on the customer's usage or preference. So just a very, few example, the differences between the two is, or if we've noticed, most of the consumers know Intel more, than AMD, and that is because the AN Intel has better brand recognition due to most PC manufacturers advertising the Intel chips that they use. So although Intel is more well known than the AMD, it does not automatically mean that it's the best for all. It's still important to know the their usage again. Now, okay. So for let's compare the two, the AMD and the Intel. So for the Intel, for the basic users, let's start with the basic, the one at the bottom. So for the basic users, if they're just they have just basic usage for the internet, like for example, uh, just checking emails, just regular surfing the web. So the basic operating system will still be good for them. Okay, so let's check them and their equivalent to their competitor. All right. So for the basic processor for AMD, they have E2, while the Intel, its equivalent to Intel is the Pentium or the Celeron. For the everyday usage, it's A10, A9, A6, or Ryzen 3. Its equivalent to Intel is i3. And for high performance, AMD um, processor, it's FX, A12, it could be the Ryzen 7 or Ryzen 5, and the equivalent to that with Intel is could be i9 or i7, while the workhorse or the beast of all the processor is the Intel Xeon. Now let's proceed. Okay, so the type of customers that would use each processor, we have the list right here of the processors or different types of processors. Now let's talk more about the type of processors that's need to the type of customers that we have. So if the customer is a basic user, which means that they just use a computer a couple times a week, very basic or also budget conscious. Most of the time, these are the elderly whose life does not really depend or whose life does not require constant computer use. So Pentium and Celeron will work with them. For everyday use, customer uses the computer every day, for email, social media perhaps, or even live streaming or basic gaming or Microsoft Office, an i3 or Ryzen 7 will be good enough for them. Now, for customers who requires a high performing computer like um, that can take multitasking, can do Microsoft Pro Office, larger Excel spreadsheets, or video editing, or online gaming. As previously mentioned, going back to the online gamings, the newer online gamings that's out now, most of them just requires a minimum processor of i5. So those are the types of users or customers who can have the i5 or i7. Now for the Xeon, Intel Xeon, this is for the customers who use computer for 10 to 12 hours, 7 days a week, where multitasking is required, 3D rendering software, a high resolution video who's working on an editing software and a complex software, or it could be an AutoCAD. So Xeon is the best for them. Now, let's talk about naming conventions of the processors. So, when we go to a computer store online, for example, HP store, and you check the specifications of a computer and you go to the processor, it does not just end with i3 or i7. you will see that um, Intel Core i7, after the brand modifier, there were still letters or numbers next to it. So they actually have meaning. So in this example, we have Intel iCore i7 1065G7. That's the processor. So the Intel iCore core is the brand. Of course, the i7 is the brand modifier. The 10 is the generation indicator. So yeah, for each processor, it also has a generation. And the 65 is the SKU, and G7 is the product line suffix. Now, there are several, they end with the letters that they end with actually mean something. So let's just talk more about the ones that we usually see. So ones that end with letter H, they mean that they are high performance and optimized for mobile. And there are ones that end with letter U. This means ultra low power. And the ones that ends with letter X or XC, that means extreme edition or high end. So yes, those are there is still a lot more, but those are the very few that we found typically in all computers. Now, this is what we see on the HP store. So if we click on the specifications just right under operating system, the processor here says Intel Core i7, and then the generation, and then the brand modifier, and the SKU number, and the product suffix. And with this example, you can see it's U, which means ultra low power. So that's what it means. So they definitely have a meaning. So if the customer is conscious about the power usage, so that's also a way to check if it's ultra low power, or if it's something that uses extremely high power or extremely low power. Now, the processors category, we have again Ryzen 3 and i3. It delivers outstanding performance for common everyday tasks. And the Ryzen 5 and i5, it is a mainstream choice for getting work done fast and enjoying some of the latest digital entertainment experiences. While the Ryzen 7 and i7, these processors bring blazing fast performance to demanding tasks, from video editing and rendering to virtual reality and real-time gaming. So, yeah, those are everything that I would like to share with you all in this video. I hope this will help you in the future when finding the right laptop for you or for your customers. Thank you.